El 25 de julio en el Teatro Solís se presentará la soprano Nadine y el pianista Kamal dentro de la temporada del Centro Cultural de Música del 80 aniversario. Estamos en conversación con ellos desde Nueva York y les compartimos esta charla. So thank you guys for this. So Nadine, next Saturday you are going to sing your last performance of Lucia, and it will be broadcast in HD worldwide. And I would like to know if that is a normal performance for you, or it has a little extra pressure considering that it's live.
Yes, it has something extra. I would not say it has extra pressure. I feel extra excitement, actually, because at the end, I try not to judge myself too much. I try not to be too critical about what I'm doing on stage or how I'm singing, just because a lot of people around the world are watching it. I'm more excited because I know that it is reaching a wider audience. And that's the point. We want to share this art form not just with the people who are inside of the theater, but the people who can watch it from the outside and make opera more worldly and world renowned and known. So I definitely feel a lot more happiness, excitement, and just really pure joy to share it. Well, knowing that I'm sharing it with a lot more people than they are there in the audience with us. So I'm very excited. I'm very much looking forward to it.
So the fact that there are a lot of close-up shots, does it mean that you have to do a different acting?
Yeah, it requires a little bit of film acting for sure. Perhaps it is a little bit different to what we're used to in theater, especially in the opera. A lot of the times we express emotions kind of on a grander or larger scale. And in film, it's such an intimate moment with the camera, since the camera is so close. In a way, you can show a little bit of more realistic expression, and probably one that's more natural to the individual. At least that's how I feel. I feel like I can kind of go more with my natural instinct and put a lot of myself into the expressions that I have when the camera is so close. So this production shows both. It shows, the challenges of having to perform live for a very big audience, but also at the exact same moment performing in a film sense, because in this production the audience does see both live performance from the stage, but also it being broadcast kind of on a movie screen. It's a little complex, but I think in a way it adds a lot more detail into what an actor or a singing actor can do and give to the audience.
Yes. So next stop is La Scala. You're returning to Milan, where you made history in January 2016 with Leonucci in your debut with Rigoletto. So I would like to know, I know Kamal was there, so I will ask him also to comment that. But I would like to know what you have to say about that memorable night.
Oh, it really was incredible because of two things. Of course, the one being that it is La Scala. It's an opera house that has tremendous history, memories, something that is so special inside of that house that it's in its walls, and you can feel it. You can feel this very unique energy. And so being part of that already was an honor for me, and I felt very privileged. Then on the other side, when we had this piece with Leonucci, I honestly didn't know what was happening in the moment. We saw the intendant on the side because he was sitting kind of in one of the boxes on the side, very close to the stage. And Leo kept looking at him and kind of nodding his head to somehow get, I guess, approval, because originally, at La Scala, because of Toscanini, it was not allowed for there to be bises in any Verdi opera. So we watched the Sovrintendente kind of think about it, ponder it, and he said, well, if you want, go for it. And Leo led the way into it. It's the only way I knew what was happening, because Leo just started singing and the orchestra started playing. I thought, well, I guess we're doing this again. Not realizing what was happening, actually, that it was history in the making. And that moment, I think that innocent moment was very special for me, because I was next to someone who has so much experience and so much importance in our world, as as the art form is. I just felt so honored by that, and very much privileged, and I learned a lot from that experience. I learned from Leo. He taught me, in a way, how to grow up from being a young singer to being a little bit more of a developed professional. Um, and I still carry that memory with me, obviously, to this day. And I cannot wait to go back.
Yeah, at one point, I was seeing again the video that is in YouTube, and at one point you were so moved that it looked like you were going to break in tears.
I was. I was crying, because, especially, and I know what moment you're talking about, Leo kneeled on his knees to, like, just give this gift that he has to the audience. And
Yeah,
it was so selfless and so open and giving, and without any hesitation. And knowing, of course, also Leo's age at the time, and him doing that, it was just it was tremendous. It was really tremendous, and it made me understand, even though I understood it before, but it really made me understand how incredible this, not just artist is, but this person is. um, that's the point of being a performer and being a live performer for a live audience. It's to give, it's to share, without sort of being selfish and keeping, this music for oneself. It's about giving it to the people who want it. And he's very good at doing that. So I love Leo. He's a very, very special colleague and man.
Kamal. So what do you remember of that night? For you, must have been very special, considering your role in Nadine's development as a singer.
It was. We knew what was happening with the beast because we saw everyone raising their telephones. By the time we got to the party afterwards, there were like already 6 different copies of it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a viral sensation. But the whole atmosphere at Scala, and to be backstage with you, and just, I don't know, maybe memory effaces rough edges, but it was one of the smoothest rehearsal processes I think you've ever had.
Yeah, it was.
It was really, and the way, just to hear the way your voice sounded in the theater was sort of like, I don't know, you don't want to say a confirmation, because I think we were pretty sure of what we were doing along the way. We handled your development with exceedingly few missteps. But there was something about hearing the sound, because you're always taught that a voice, like a violin, expands in the space it's in. And if someone is properly connected to their body, if someone's on their breath, if it's being produced correctly, if the phonation is correct, if the language is putting the voice in the right general direction, then it will fill whatever space you put it in. And at La Scala, it's not a question of filling it. It's a question of how full the voice sounds in that acoustic. because Nadine's voice is, I think, so well balanced that you didn't want to hear. It seemed exactly the right weight for Gilda, exactly the right density, that there was lightness when you needed it, but there was fullness when you needed it. And it was just good to hear that in that theater and think, well, you know, Verdi himself sat right where we were sitting, not willingly. He didn't like to go to the theater all that much. And, you know, one of the things, like, we were in the historical theater of Verdi, the historical theater that Verdi fought with repeatedly, went through periods of not even allowing his works, of trying to prevent Ligori from even allowing his works to be presented there. I mean, I've got books of his letters here where he talks about, if they're going to do what they did last night, I don't want to give them any of my scores, and boom, 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 boom. You know, so in Italy, this is all in the present tense. There are people who are working in Scala, who knew people who were working in Scala, who knew people were. It's a continuous line back. You know, New York, Puccini came over for several premieres, but we don't have that because we're not in the same room anymore, alas, into which Puccini came and walked. But at La Scala, you are in Verdi's theater, even if he would have said, bah, they're not my theater, no one is my theater. You know, still for us, it was a privilege just to be there in his space. And you really have the sense of the maestro being present when you're in Milano. You know, you go out to Casa Verdi, you see where he lays. And you had his epitaph is Pianse ed amo per tutti. He wept and he loved for us all. And you get the feeling that this music belongs to the people and that they accept it as their patrimonio. They know it belongs to them. And I'm not even sure all of Italy is like that. I'm not even sure outside of Scala, Milano is like that. It's something very special in that building.
Definitely. Oh, yes. That's very true.
So, Kamal, you are a collaborative pianist, you are a coach, you are a conductor, you teach, but I think that everything, it seems to me at least, is related to the human voice. And I would like to know, where did it start, that fascination, that love for the human voice?
I think it's born with everybody. They sing to us before they speak to us when they're trying to calm us down as babies. You know, they make these musical sounds. I think we are wired for that before we got wired for language evolution. So from the very beginning, I mean, I was very fortunate that my mother sang in a chorus of aficionados, and that they did a production with orchestra, a concert version of Aida when I was very young, and I heard it, and that was just really what formed. I don't remember it ever not seeming like that wasn't my music. You know, always. I got involved with playing the violin, and the violin is the other human voice. It is the representation of the human voice. So before I could study singing, I was studying that. And then I was studying piano the whole time, studying singing the whole time. But my work has always been, I think, making whatever instrument you're playing sing, or making the orchestra sing, is what your work is as a musician, connecting to that. You know, there's the rhythmic element, which is maybe the dance element. There's the spoken element, maybe the rhetorical element. But the lyrical element is a part of all music. It doesn't matter if I'm playing Schumann Fantasy or playing for a singer or playing solo repertoire or playing for a violinist. We're always in this position of looking to sing.
Nadine, I would like to talk about your two solo albums. The first one, it's related to Somewhere, no? There's a Place for Us.
Yeah.
And the selection, it has a strong message, and I think it says a lot about you. Would you tell us, please?
Yes. Actually, both are quite correlated with my family and my family's heritage. How my family sort of inspired me to even become a singer and to look to music as this paradise and beautiful escape, even in my childhood. So around the time of organizing the repertoire for the first album, There's a Place for Us, I believe it was around 2016. And certain things were occurring during that time, especially in the United States, in this country, where immigration and people from these families, they were having a lot of pressures being put on them publicly. And my family, I mean, I'd say everyone from my family, my grandmother, my mother, they come from Portugal. They immigrated from Portugal, at least my mother did, to live here in the United States. And my grandfather on my father's side, he's Puerto Rican. My grandmother on my father's side is Italian. And they both also immigrated to the United States and built their home here. So my entire family heritage, I mean, they're basically all immigrants who came to this country. And when these messages, especially sort of these negative messages, were being given to the public around the world, of course, but really here, I was very upset. I was very upset and very offended by it. And I wanted to make an album sort of around that and kind of paying homage to my family and the fact that we are essentially, or at least I believe, we're all one race. We're all part of each other. We're all connected in some way. And especially what Kamal was saying, it's very true. Music is something that we all, as human beings, we relate to, we sympathize with, and we all love to some extent. It doesn't have to be classical music. It's just music in general. So we share that as a universal language. And I thought, what better way to remind people of that is, well, through music. And it's why I chose certain things. Bernstein made sort of a bigger impact in the album because, of course, he wrote West Side Story, which is essentially about that. And reminding people and sort of reminding myself that no matter where you come from, no matter what situation you're in, there will always be a place for you. So hence the title, There's a Place for Us. Yeah.
And you said that the second one, the Made for Opera, also has a message?
Yes. I think that's going to be always my trending thing that because, Maria Julia, I don't like to make albums just to show off what I can sing. Of course, there's a part of that, but it's not all part of that. I think I'm too empathetic to, put things in an album and say, oh yes, look at me, look how fabulous I am. I always wanted to have some sort of message because music has brought so much to my life and means so much to me that I want to give that back. So it's called Made for Opera. My grandmother, this is my Portuguese grandmother from Lisboa, she had wanted to be an opera singer. And my great-grandfather, at that time, he told her, no, you cannot become anything, any working girl or an artist, because your role in life as a woman is to be a wife and a mother. That's it. You can't do anything else. And I won't support you if you try. So she never got to live out this passion. And my mother, being an only child, saw this when she grew up. She saw her mother living a life not totally present and having a little bit of regret. So when I was born, I don't think I've ever told Kamal this story. I was 3 months old. I'm in the car seat, and my mother was watching me through the rearview mirror. And she says, 3 months old, that I was tapping my foot to the rhythm of the music that was playing on the radio. And she turned around to look at me, and she was shocked. She said, how is this baby doing that? So then when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, this fascination with music just kept going and developing, that she gave me the option to take voice lessons as long as I practiced every day for an hour every day. That was my agreement with my mother. And my grandmother got to see that. She got to understand that, you know, no matter that I was a girl or not, I was being supported and allowed to kind of learn about my passions and this growing dream that was developing even so young. And her daughter was the one doing that for me. Then she introduced me to opera when I was 10 years old. My mother did. And that was it. I never wanted to do anything else after that. Not pop, not, musical theater. Opera was my everything. And I think just from that story alone, somehow I was made for opera. It was like sort of inevitable that I would go down that path. And I feel like I can walk a path that my grandmother never even got to try the shoes to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And she watched a little bit of that because my grandmother, she died when I was 19 years old. So Kamal was the one who brought me to Palm Beach Opera and had me be part of the opera chorus. I mean, when I was like 14 years old. So 14 years old to 18 years old. And then I was lucky enough to make my operatic debut when I was 16 years old at Palm Beach Opera. And Kamal was all part of that and was there for that. And my grandmother also witnessed that. So, yeah. So I think for her, it wasn't just that she was witnessing her granddaughter, living out this dream that she also had. She was also witnessing how society was progressing and that women, modern day women, now had a choice and could go after their dreams and their passions, even if they are women. And that, I think that was very big for my grandmother to be part of. So yeah, I feel made for opera because of this story and where all of these where these roads where they led. I mean, they led me to Kamal. I've known Kamal now for 22 years. I don't know if that's coincidence or I don't know, but
yeah. All those years, from many years I was commuting from here to South Africa,
yeah.
And the South African singers would say that your grandmother, your ancestors, are guiding your career.
Yeah.
That we can, when we lose the ancestors and when they pass, we can turn it over.
Yeah.
Because they're taking the wheel now, and you just have to show up and do your work.
Yeah.
Which you've done. I tell you, the Palm Beach Opera chorus. What was your first show? Lucia. Okay. All right. That's a coincidence, But I do remember someone telling me that backstage at Lucia you were singing Queen of the Night.
I was.
Which we were not working on.
I was practicing.
And I looked askance at that. That was not supposed to be in the rep. And I remember one night we did an event for the young friends.
Yeah.
And in between the sets that you were singing, they were playing recordings of operatic music, and you were singing along very gently to Butterfly. And I discovered that she already knew the text to Butterfly, which did not fill me with joy. It's like, too much too soon. But, now it's I that's saying, okay, let's try Boy.
Right.
It's been
that's
you
right.
that's been
Yeah.
But yeah, no, absolutely. It was also fortunate that my position there was such that I could deal with the casting, because the first role we put you on with was a very low tessitura. Was the not the Dew Fairy and Hansel, but the Sandman, which could even be done by a mezzo.
That's right.
Because we thought, no, let's not pull at the fabric of the voice so soon.
Yeah.
Let's just butter up the center, establish it smoothly.
Yeah.
Then the next thing was the Erste Knabe in Zauberflöte.
That's right.
Which, again, it's higher. We started to move in your real direction. And by then it was very clear. I think the year after that was when you came to Manus, and that was when I moved back to New York, too. So it all worked out with a great deal of calculation, but also a great deal of good fortune, which we have to tip the hat to the ancestors for, because we did not create it.
I agree.
So Kamal, her voice, Nadine's voice, is difficult to pinpoint, to classify,
Not at all.
the repertoire. No?
Not really. Not really. I think one always wants to stay with what's healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and a jacket that's too tight is just as bad as a jacket that's too big.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about Nadine's great mentor and my wonderful colleague who I had great joy in working with, Marilyn Horn. And we were just talking about Marilyn just now. And one thing I remember reading in an Opera News article years ago from Marilyn, before I had ever met her, before I ever knew anything, that Marilyn said, the voice is like a blanket. You pull it up over your head and the feet get cold. And we never chose to exploit those Queen of the Night kinds of notes, even though they were there, because I just had this sense, I don't want her feet to get cold.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nadine grew up in Florida, you sang some musical theater, some crossover stuff, for even if it was just in concerts
Mm-hmm.
in homes for older people and stuff like that. And so you always had that spoken position that goes
Mm-hmm.
along with American musical theater, which is very helpful. And si canta come si parla, you need that. And I thought, I don't want to get into a situation where we're singing so high that the speaking is not there. Ever. Because I've seen, what's that line from Street Scene? The guy says, I've seen too many of those types hanging around the theater. I've heard too many people who do that around the theater.
Oh, yeah.
I know where it leads, and I wasn't interested in that.
Mm-hmm. Kamal was always very, very, I don't want to say careful, but you were careful with me, but also he was so informative. There was always so much information that he gave to me that we never had to go there. We never had to sort of guess what I could sing or couldn't sing. Working with Kamal was like putting on the perfect glove. The first trying it on was the perfect fit. And I never felt, and I still never feel, like I have to question anything that Kamal tells me or tries to help me with. So I never played a guessing game with him, and he certainly never played a guessing game with me or with my voice or tried to experiment I don't think it interested both of us.
No,
actually.
And the great thing is, if you pick the barriers not the barriers, if you go down the right channel, you can sing very fully and with abandon and not carefully.
Yeah.
Because one thing is for certain, if you say, oh, let's go easy here, oh, let's lighten up here, destabilizes the larynx immediately.
Yeah.
No possibility of hearing your soul, of hearing your real voice that's inside of you, if you're singing music that forces those kinds of calculations.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we didn't have to worry. And she would go away to work, to study in summer festivals and things, and several. And it was when we come back, it's like, okay, let's see. So this is developing nicely. This is going well. And okay, that particular concept, what are you doing in that spot? Maybe we can let go of that concept for a while.
Yes.
Maybe we'll get to it later. I don't know, like 2 or 3 times. I don't know if you found September to be a taxing time because you wondered what I would say. You never said so.
No, actually, when September would come around, whenever I've had like a long pause from Kamal and his teachings and just his brain, I always feel like I'm lacking something, and I can't. I'm always excited when we sort of reunite and we come back together. Actually, for this Lucia, for instance, this is a very good example. Kamal. So I sang Lucia. I did the first performance. Kamal was there, of course. And then afterward, he said, I'd like to look at a few things. And I hadn't seen Kamal in maybe a couple of months or something.
Yeah, not since Firenze.
Yeah.
We hadn't worked since Firenze, I don't think.
Yeah.
The Traviata, which was, we were working every day.
Right.
And it was,
Right. So I go into the studio with Kamal, and we were working on trills specifically. And so we're working on it, and he's giving me this information. And we always, with Kamal, at least for me, I always have like a light bulb moment because he gives me the option to have it. And I texted him later and I said, I should have seen you before I did the first performance. And he was like, well, we all learn things. And,
You know, but they're so busy these days with these days. I now sound like the
Wow.
eminence grise,
No,
but they get very involved with staging. They
Yeah.
get very involved with all of these things.
Yeah.
There's a variety of processes in opera that are sort of meant to be like a sealed container.
Mm.
And the people working on a production and the people working in a house sometimes want it to be a sealed container, and they're working just in these terms. And that's when someone who knows your voice for a long time says, okay, right. You know, in Munich, in Barcelona, X, Y, and Z were happening. And can we bring that into this?
Mhm.
You know, one of the things, we hadn't worked on Lucia for a while,
Mhm.
but I had heard your broadcast from Barcelona when I
Yeah.
was in Finland.
That's right.
And we exchanged some notes then, and I felt very sure of how things were.
Mhm.
And then I heard from Munich, which I think just the little clips of it that I heard is one of your best runs
Yeah,
of any
probably,
show.
yeah.
The Lucia's in Munich just now.
Yeah.
And years ago, when we were in Paris doing that recital,
Yeah.
you asked me a question about how is it that colleagues can go off track.
Mm.
And I said, it's because they don't have someone out there listening who knows their voice. And that's what I am very determined to. It's just like, you need someone listening who knows your voice, even if it's only in 2 or 3 runs of a show per year. You know, I was there in Firenze. I'm here. I'm going to hear some of the Gildas because we're going to be rehearsing for Buenos Aires.
Exactly.
I'll hear things in Buenos Aires and in Montevideo. I'll be playing in Montevideo. So it's like, I keep seeing what's happening in public, which is really what matters.
Mhm.
Because in the studio, you can booga booga anybody into doing anything, sort of,
Yeah.
if they're as gifted as Nadine is. And it's like you can make certain things happen, but when the rubber hits the road, as we say in the automotive biz, and we're
Mhm.
actually out there in the public, you see some of this booga is more ugly than booga. Some of these things need to be established in a different way, or you can just relax and say, aha, that really was the difference.
Mhm.
Like going to the second and the third and the fourth shows, it's like, aha, that was the piece for that. You know, the last set of drills were
It was good.
excellent. I remember reading when I was a kid, Beverly Sills had one teacher her whole career, Estelle Liebling.
Uh-huh.
And I remember reading that Beverly Sills said the morning after a Faust at 8 a.m., her phone rang, and it was Mrs. Liebling, who was over 80 years old. And Ms. Liebling said to Beverly, those trills in the Jewel song were slow and sloppy. I expect to see you at 9 a.m. sharp. And hung up the phone.
Yeah,
So I feel
I
like
read it.
I've got also Beverly, who I had the privilege of knowing. At least I feel like I have Miss Liebling and Beverly over my shoulder saying, you can work her harder on those drills. It's okay.
I will say that Kamal is far kinder than that.
Yes,
He's gentler than that.
I'm not in my 80s yet. Give me time.
But he does tell me the truth. Kamal always does tell me the truth. He's very honest with me, which is very important to have, you know, with a singer. God, I guess you're my professor, I guess. I mean, he's been my professor, my inspiration, my go-to, Kamal's just even like part of my family, essentially.
That's a privilege and a joy.
Well,
and
for me too.
It is. I mean, it is wonderful when we're all down there together.
I know.
We have a good time.
But it's, yeah.
So
We learned
Nadine,
Lucia at
what?
I was saying we learned Lucia at Nadine's home in Florida. And I think I was just down there just for us to have coachings. It was just Christmas break one year, just before Christmas. So I'd left South Africa. And this idea, do you want to go to Zurich and sing Lucia, came up. And we were like, let's look at it.
Right.
Let's see. It wasn't really in the big plan per se.
Mm-mm.
Gilda, I knew was heading. I always knew Violetta would be a great thing. But it was just like, okay, let's see how this is with Lucia. And it wasn't a risk, but it was a, are you going to be comfortable?
Right.
Are you enjoying singing this? I think these days it is very hard for singers when they accept a role to know if they're going to be comfortable in it or not.
Yeah.
It's not the custom now for people to learn their whole repertoire when they're very young. We got way closer to that with you than most
Yeah.
people do, and
Yeah.
I believe it was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
By the time she was 16, Caro Nome was already in the rep,
Yeah.
you know, and the arias and duets from Traviata and Bohème were in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good thing, because if someone asks you for a role, you know what's in it, and you can make
Mhm.
an intelligent decision about yes or no.
I agree.
Nadine, we know what we feel when you sing, but I would like to know what does singing do for you?
A lot. Singing transports me to probably the most beautiful world I can possibly imagine. A world that I feel and sort of see from my soul, in my heart, in my head. Music, singing, everything has kind of been like a therapy for me as well. You know, I didn't grow up, Kamal knows this, I didn't grow up in the most admirable environment. My parents are wonderful people. They went through a lot. We struggled with money. I have 2 sisters, so we're 3. And those pressures, that stress on my parents' shoulders, it was a lot. And the way that they absorbed that stress, it was a little destructive in our family environment. I also didn't grow up in an area that was the best. Let's say in South Florida, I was bullied a lot as a kid, a lot. Actually, I was bullied a lot because I loved opera, which is the strangest thing to bully a child about, but I was. And I spent a lot of my childhood alone, you know, without friends. And perhaps this will sound cliche, but music and singing, that was my friend. That was my best friend, because I knew it would never attack me. It would never try to hurt me. It was just something that I could escape to and escape sort of within. It was my whole world. I didn't need Barbie dolls. I didn't even need my sisters. I just wanted music and learning how to sing. So when I sing, it brings me back to all of that. You know, it's like it's the coziest blanket I can find in life. And it's always been there for me as well. You know, it's I guess, yeah, it's always been my best friend, my biggest love. And for that, I'm always so grateful when I have the opportunity to sing and to perform. It also humbles me greatly. So yeah, I'd say that.
I remember when
So
we were in Palm Beach and when we were starting out,
Yeah.
also that like there was one concert we did where we unveiled your Sophie in Rosenkavalier Trio for the first time. Again, when
Yeah.
you were 16 or 17,
Yes,
right?
I was very young.
And it was wonderful. You had wonderful singers that were also in the Young Artist Program that were, you know, in their 20s singing with you. Marianne was so good.
Oh yeah.
I remember. And the feeling, it was like the day after your prom. And I had a moment of thought of, should I call her to come sing on a concert the day after her prom? It's like, who's going to want to go deal with me and opera? And these kids that were 10 years older than you and that were not your peers. It's like more than 10. And it's like, gosh, was this the right thing to do? And you came and you just, Sophie and Rosenkavalier, not easy, but it was so easy for you. And I just like, no, I did right to call her. It never will bring her weekend down to show up and sing. I had this clear assessment that awareness that showing up to sing was always going to be a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it wasn't. We've worked plenty over the years since then, but it was no different, particularly when I heard you sing the role in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
It basically just came out the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That's a role I want to see you sing a few more times before you hang it up and become
That's
a Marshall.
right.
And Rosenkavalier was so beautiful and so easy in your
Thank you.
voice.
Well, you know, music, I mean, sometimes, Maria Julia, I don't feel okay in settings that are normal for people to be in, social settings or whatever. Sometimes I feel like I'm not in the right place. But I would say almost all the time, I feel completely at home and normal when I'm inside of a theater or when I'm walking to the theater, or there's something about me engaging in something that's musical. I feel totally relaxed, even if it, sometimes performing is nerve wracking. But sometimes, yeah, in like normal life settings, I feel awkward. I don't feel like I'm in the right place until I'm somehow near a theater or doing something that has to do with singing and performing.
So your album is titled Made for Opera, but I think you made for recitals too. So I would like
Yeah.
you to tell me what you feel, like no scenery, no costumes, just the pianist, the music, your soul. So tell me.
Oh, I absolutely love it. I love it. I especially love it, I will say, when I can collaborate with someone whom I trust, whom I love, and also someone who celebrates music like I do. That makes a very big difference. So I know when having this recital with Kamal, and of course, South America, Argentina, Uruguay, this has some special, sort of a special thing in all of our hearts in this room, because Lewis is behind here. But yes, we all have sort of a connection to it. And so this kind of setting with Kamal there and us performing probably songs and arias that we've been working on and he's given me for years. It's beautiful. It's the best thing that I could possibly do. And I know it's not going to feel like work. It's going to feel like we're kind of vacationing and just having fun and making music. And like I said, I don't usually feel comfortable in other social settings as I do totally when I'm singing. And I know that this recital will be exactly that. Just sort of another place to share music with open arms and enjoy oneself to the fullest.
So what are your memories from your first visit to Uruguay? That recital in La Escena Vocal in Sala Verde. What
Okay,
do you
so
remember of that?
I remember, okay, I'll start with the most important and then I'll go down. So, the most important was, of course, the public. You all were so welcoming and so giving with not just your appreciation, but also your energy. When we performers are on stage, we feel a lot from the audience. We feel this like buzz of energy and it feeds us. It feeds and can sort of inspire how we're going to perform, especially if the energy is positive. And I would say that the public in Uruguay, with this experience, a very uplifting energy that I loved and I felt embraced. So let's say that. Then I remember you giving me and Jerome a very nice tour around Uruguay, especially a food tour, which I sincerely appreciated. And that was very nice because, again, yes, we were performing a recital, and of course, there's a certain amount of seriousness that goes with that and professionalism. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you can't enjoy yourself with the people you're working with and share sort of outside experiences with each other that are always going to be related to music making. So you provided that for us, and that was really lovely. Then the last was my introduction to dulce de leche. It was actually in Uruguay, not in Argentina.
Ah,
It's like, excuse me. But yes, it was the fascination and pure addiction to dulce de leche started in Uruguay. And I will say, when I arrived back home, my mom, she was like, you've gained some weight from your dulce de leche experience. I said, yeah, and what of it? So it was, it was just, it was a celebration of people, of music, life, enjoying to give and to receive, and dulce de leche. Yeah.
But this is amazing. I think it was July 2015. And in August, you were at the Paris Opera. In December, you were at the Metropolitan singing Rigoletto. And in January 2016, La Scala. So I think it was, if not the last, one of the last little concerts that you gave in your life.
Absolutely.
So So Kamal, what is the feeling do you have with recitals and this recital together with Nadine in Buenos Aires and in Montevideo?
I would like it to be as much as if someone just happened to wander in. Now in New York, when we're working together, we work in a studio.
Yeah.
But when when Nadine was starting out and we were in Florida, we would work in the living room of the house that I was in Florida. I would like everybody to feel, sometimes people would come over, like whoever had the next lesson, or like that time when an agent who would come down to hear some performances was like in the sunroom on the side to take a nap while we were having our lesson. And whenever people just happened to overhear the songs, they were fascinated. And I just like for the audience in these recitals to be able to experience what people experienced who just happened to hear us doing music together in the living room. Because it wasn't like because we didn't have an audience, we were doing less. That isn't us.
Right. No, it's not.
So as much as possible, as if the theaters becomes a giant living room of ours and we're just entertaining friends.
That's
and
right.
sharing music with friends.
Absolutely. Me too.
Yeah. So I would like to tell you, Nadine, I was listening to a broadcast from Barcelona. I think it was Lucia, and you did some interviews in the radio. And I don't recall exactly what the guy asked you, but it was something about what do you listen outside from classical music or opera, and you started to show him what you listen. It was a Whitney Houston song, so I wonder if you can show us a little bit too.
So wait,
Just get a little. Okay.
I have to think about a song. Okay, the one that comes to my mind is I wanna run to you. I wanna run to you. Won't you hold me in your arms and keep me safe from harm? I wanna run to you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Nadine, did you read what Pretty Yender wrote, your birthday message? Did you read that?
Yeah. Yes,
Wasn't it incredible movie?
Pretty is such a special person, and she and I, we talk. So on my birthday, I had a show. I had a matinee for Lucia. She video calls me like 10 a.m., something like this, hoping, I'll be awake. And I was. I answered it. I said, Freddie. And seeing her face, not many sopranos, by the way, would do this, but seeing her face with such light and joy, regardless of us being sopranos and kind of singing this, similar repertoire, she puts her human being before she puts her singer, if, we want to phrase it a certain way. She's just, she's very special. Kamal actually introduced the two of us to each other in
Paris.
Oh, in
Paris. Did you meet her when you came to South
Yeah.
Africa? Did you meet her when you came down? Yes, because she was just about to go to Milano.
Yeah.
Nadine came down. She took her money from winning the Met auditions and spent it on coaching, because that's what a smart singer does. And she came down to South Africa because I was living there then, and we were just getting pretty ready for the Belvedere competition. And then her thing to La Scala followed. Right. So they met there. But I always think of Paris because I always think of how a certain intendant was in shock because we had gone for lunch, the three of us together, had a wonderful lunch. That lunch was so good, I can't forget it.
I know.
And that the intendant at Paris Opera was like, but my two prima donnas having lunch together, and who is this man who is so lucky to be entertaining them both? And we both said, our coach, our teacher. And he said, Fortuné.
Fortuné.
And I said, I truly am. I really am.
Oh, come on. Well, we are fortunate.
So, Kamal, as part of our celebration of our 80th anniversary, we are bringing Academy of St. Martin in the Fields with Joshua Bell to our season. And I know you not long ago played with Joshua Bell. Can you tell us something about it?
Well, I've done a few events with him. It's always a great pleasure. We did the first things after the pandemic. We did some live streamings and concerts from home, and it's a great joy. His wife is a wonderful soprano, Larissa Martinez, and so I've worked with her, and then through her I got to know Joshua, and it's like having two great sopranos when he's playing, because what he does with the violin, he's really the person that I think of my personal experience who knows how to make the violin like an unlimited singer, like a singer that's both a soprano and a mezzo and a contralto at the same time, and that can play two notes at once in polyphony, which, alas, that's the one thing singers can't do. But he can make the violin talk. It has words if he wants it to. And sometimes he will do the most divine thing on a repetition, just this fascinating change and move into a whole different world. And I'll say, wow, what was that? And he'll just say, oh, I thought it would be good not to do the same thing twice. Totally honest and simple. it isn't always the concepts that sets the great apart from very fine musicians. It's the clarity that goes along with the talent.
Mm.
He has great clarity about what he does when he's working, and that's a phenomenal thing to have, to be able to assess your own work so strongly and so well.
So a last question, and Nadine, you dreamt of, as a child, of being an opera singer, and you are fulfilling your dream. And I would like to know, at the end of the day, what it really matters to you.
Oh, what really matters to me? Okay. I think it's more who really matters to me in my life. I'm very close with my family. We've been through a lot of things. And probably it's why we're so close now. So my family, of course, my mentors, who are not just mentors, but very dear friends and basically part of our family, which Kamal and Louis are definitely. This is waving in the back. But, and, you know, I watched an interview that I thought was really fascinating, and the person who answered the question gave a really lovely answer, and I thought, you know what? I think I feel the same way. The question was, if the world were to end, if you knew that like a comet or an asteroid, whatever you want to call it, came to the Earth and was going to strike it down and that's it, what would you want to do? Or who would you have around you? And I thought about that. I said, what would I do? And the person who asked the question said, oh, would you have a big party? And the artist who answered said, no, I wouldn't have a big party. I would just want the people whom I love the most and have given so much to me in my life. And of course, what I've given back to them. I just want them in a room with me. And that's it. And I think I feel exactly the same way. You know, that's what matters to me the most, is the people who are in your life, not just to serve you. I don't, but to share something with you, and vice versa, in a way that makes you feel like you're your best self, and that you can give that best self to others. So that's what matters to me the most, are the people who have just like affected my life in such a big way, and I cherish these people so much. Of course, I cherish singing and music making, absolutely, and it matters a lot. I'd say above that, though, the people that I love in my life. That's what matters absolutely the most.
How about you, Kamal? Same question.
I think it's important to increase the amount of beauty in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't control who's going to get it, who's going to understand it. And even if I'm playing, Brahms Intermezzo in a room alone by myself, I'm conscious of trying to put something into the air that's a little different.
Mm.
We have an obligation. Whoever wants to experience it, they listen with their ears, but we make the music with our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And to educate people in the love. I remember Magda Olivero, who was one of my great idols, who I unfortunately never got to meet, said that after her retirement, after World War II, and she had retired, and Chilea was trying to get her to come back to singing again, he said, our theaters have been reopened, but people need to be re-educated in the love of what is beautiful.
Mm.
There's also a place for art that's dark. There's a place for art that is strong. I'm not saying I don't believe in contemporary music. I commissioned 9 operas while I was in Cape Town, so I believe in contemporary music, very much so. And you will hear some living composers, at least one, maybe more, on the recital in Montevideo. But I do believe that we should increase the beauty because there's enough ugly out there.
Oh, yeah.
Don't need more of that. What we need to do, not to create an escape, but to inspire people to bring more beauty into the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
I have high regard for people in the political sphere who are truly motivated by this. I am not someone who would ever say all politicians are crooks. My dad was a government worker. I believe very much that governments can work for good. People who do the work can be idealistic, because he was. And so I know there must be more good men out there like my father was. But that's not the way I can bring more beauty to the world. That isn't the gift I have. So I'm happy to stay, whether I'm teaching, whether I'm conducting, whether I'm playing. It is about educating others and myself in the love of what's beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, guys. It was really, really a pleasure.